Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kenna and I post all kinds of Littlest Pet Shop content related to my collection, series, plotting, general writing stuff, and I do tons of yapping, so if you're into that, consider subscribing. Today is episode 2 of my big master series where I teach you every single thing you need to know from start to finish to create your very own LPS series. And today's episode is all about characters. I have crafted this series meticulously. I spent a lot of time on it, and I would like you to work on your characters for your next step on purpose. There's a method to my madness, and if you have your cast of characters created before you dive into the plot, it will make your plot easier to write. And as mentioned in last episode, this series is interactive, so if you have any questions that you didn't get to ask last episode or any new ones this episode, just leave them in the comments and I will address them in the next episode. I don't have any comments to address today, and that's because I actually batch filmed the first and second episode, so sorry. Maybe I'll edit some in post. But with all of that out of the way, let's hop into it, because after today's episode, you should either already have your cast of characters or you should have all the knowledge you need to get creating it. Before we start working on your cast of characters, just some general tips. I want you to know that less is more. You don't need an enormous cast of characters. Now, if you want one, that's fine, but it will make your plot more confusing to write. I know this because I tried this when I was piloting Outlast, and you wonder why that series never happened? Probably because my cast was like 20 characters. I don't know what I was thinking. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Another thing, be careful with diversity. Diversity is awesome, and I certainly think you should write a cast of diverse characters, but make sure that whatever diversity you are writing into your story, you have knowledge about, so do the research. If you're going to insert a character from insert X community that maybe you're not part of, talk to people in that community. Watch interview videos. Do whatever you can to learn. I think the best kind of learning is experiential, so I would say best case scenario, meet as many people as you can that are from the community you're trying to write. And I'm not just talking about things like disabilities or being part of the queer community. I'm also talking about things like even regional things, you know? I'm from rural Appalachia, and we have a culture here. It's obviously not like a culture. It's not like going overseas and being in a total fish out of water situation, but there are a lot of things that you might want to know about rural Appalachia if you're writing a character that comes from a rural Appalachian community. We have a lot of food deserts, there's a lot of poverty, and we're big on blue collar work, among so many other things. And we also have a little bit of an accent. I try to kind of not have an accent when I record, so you probably can't tell because I'm minding my voice heavy, but if you were to talk to me in a regular conversation, or even if you were to just watch one of my vlogs on my second channel, I think you might hear a little bit of it come out. So anyways, yes, include diversity, just be careful about it and do your homework. Next up, I want you to know that it's okay to name your characters last. In fact, I even encourage it, especially because names are often subconsciously tied to personalities. Think Karen, for example. Let's say your main character is named Karen, and your main character is supposed to be a likable protagonist. Well, as you're filling out her character sheet and getting to know Karen might jump out at you to be someone who's not very pleasant, and it might just be that subconscious connection you made to the name. That's why I really like naming my characters last. I let the character's personality help me pick the name, rather than the character's name help me pick the personality. Especially because if I've already followed episode 1 and I have inspiration in mind, I kind of have a small inkling of an idea of what kind of purpose my main character is going to serve. So I would rather work on that personality and make sure I've got that personality right way before I make sure I've got the name right, especially because the name can be changed all the way up until video production. So let's just worry about the name last. That also leads me to address picking the actual LPS that's going to puppeteer your character or represent your character, if you will. It's up to you how you do this, but I actually like to pick the LPS last, and it's for the same reason that I like to pick the name last. I think you look at a certain pet, and I can look at a pet on my wall right now, and I already know its personality just by looking at it. And sometimes that doesn't work so well when you're creating a series and you already have a need for specific personalities that are going to serve certain purposes. So I vote work on the personality and then pick the LPS, but this is your journey and you can do it however the hell you want. So do what you want, but that's what I do. Next up, and this is going to be a long episode, so just sit the hell down, okay? We have a lot to talk about, and that's what this series is going to be. I'm going to be super detailed and yappy, so if you don't like that, then this might not be the how to make an LPS series tutorial you want, but for those of you who really want their hand held and you want every bit of knowledge you can get, this is for you. So we still haven't gotten to the point where we're creating our characters yet, but let's say you need some inspiration. You don't even know where to start with your characters. Here are some things that I like to look to. I think it can sometimes be helpful to model bits and pieces of a character's personality after an existing character. So if you really want to create a character that, reminds you of BoJack Horseman, he has a really particular personality. And maybe you can pull bits and pieces from who he is as a person and insert him into your characters. Perhaps you want a character who doesn't learn from their mistake. See how easy that was? I thought of a character that already exists, and I took that attribute out of them that I want my character to have that's going to serve a purpose to my unique plot. We talked about this last episode, but real people, I would say absolutely do not completely take a real person that you know and make them into a character entirely, but I just mean look to real people for traits or quirks or little things that can inform how your character makes decisions and the way that they think. I think looking to real people can be really helpful here. And I also noted you can look within yourself too. You might be wondering, okay, but this puts me in danger of creating a Mary Sue. It does, but if you're mindful about it, that won't happen. I think one thing I like to do is look inward for character flaws, right? Because then you don't have to worry so much about making a Mary Sue if the parts that you're borrowing from yourself to inject into your characters are things like flaws. Another thing you can look to inspire you as you're working on your characters is IRL conversations, so real conversations that you've had with people you know. I think when you think about the kinds of dialogue with the people you've had in your life, things can jump out at you. Like, think of your friend so-and-so. What do you notice about that person? Think of your teacher. What do you notice about that person? And when you look back to conversations that you've had in your life that have been very impactful to you, certain things jump out. I know for me, it's a lot of the negative, more hurtful conversations that I've had. I can think of a person that I know in my life who has been very dismissive of me and has been very self-centered. There we go. 2 traits that I can use for probably my antagonist. And then this one might be a long shot for some of you, but I actually put music down as something that you can look to for inspiration when writing characters. Again, I struggled to connect with the music. I'm not really a big find the art of the lyrics of the music type of person, but I know that a lot of people are, so I want to honor you guys and make sure you know that that's such a good idea if this is something that would work for you. Okay, everybody, one last set of things I want to go over before we actually get into the character sheet template that I spent an hour and a half making for you to use. I want to talk about what every good character needs, and to me what constitutes a good character is a character that will fully serve your narrative and take your plot from point A to point B all the way at the end. And please note, this is a list of things that your main characters will need. Side characters, they're a little bit different, they're a little interpretive, you're kind of on your own kid with that, but for the main characters, here's what every single main character absolutely needs to be able to help you create a full story that goes 360 degrees all the way around. your main characters are all going to need their own set of values. So start brainstorming what is important to your characters. The reason why your main characters absolutely need values is because this is going to inform their decision making throughout the story. This is going to inform how they prioritize throughout the story, and it might help inform some of those poor decisions they make that land them lower and lower and lower until they hit their rock bottom. Your characters will also need to change throughout the story, so you need to be thinking of how distinctly from point A to point B your character will develop. Maybe your character starts out stubborn, and by the end of the story, they're open-minded. Or maybe it's like a BoJack Horseman type of deal, where your character starts out bad in some capacity up to you, and by the end of the story, they're even worse. I think seeing this kind of... I'm encouraging you to be bad, but I'm just, you know how I am. I don't like stories that have happy endings. I don't like stories that whatever, because it's not realistic. But I also, I can't encourage you to do something like that, because at the end of the day, your viewers are going to want payoff. We'll get into payoff later. That's not for today's episode, but, where even was I? Oh my gosh. Here we go. Yes, change. Your characters need to change. So think about how each character is going to develop. It doesn't have to be anything too detailed. It can be simple as your character goes from being depressed to being not depressed, or your character goes from being rude to everybody to being nice to everybody. I don't know. These are actually really lame examples, but I'm just going off the dome, so you can probably come up with something way cooler than that. Now, your characters are all going to need a big goal. It doesn't have to be an obviously stated goal in the story necessarily, but as the writer, I need you to know what your characters want the most. So when you think of the goal, think of what do your characters want, what are they going to be trying to make happen or to acquire throughout the entire story, or maybe it's about what they're trying to prevent, but either way, we need a goal for all of your main characters. If you're struggling to form some goals, you can think of your story's theme. If you have a theme in mind, I think the theme can often coincide with the character goals, so that's a good place to start. If you have one protagonist in mind and you kind of know their personality a little bit, that might help you shape their goals. If your main character, you already know they're going to be really stubborn, maybe their goal might have something to do with trying to keep something from changing or trying to convince somebody of something like that. You see how I'm making connections there? If you're working on a character that's a villain or antagonist, and you're struggling with goals, you can just think, okay, well, what does my protagonist want to happen? And then make your antagonist want the opposite to happen. Pretty simple in that case. And then this is why we worked on values first. You can also fall back on your values and reference those when you're trying to figure out what your character's goals are going to be, because your values in real life even, they're going to inform your goals. For example, one of my personal values is hearing everybody's story and doing the best I can to be there for everybody in my life emotionally, and that's really helped inform my goal of becoming a clinical mental health counselor. See how those things work? You can do that with a character too. Circling back to what every main character needs, your main characters are also all going to need a lesson that they'll learn. It can be something simple, it's usually tied to the theme. Just think, what's each character going to learn? They can all learn the same thing if you want, or you can have each of your main characters, if you even have multiple, because one is completely fine, learn something slightly different and kind of attune that to what their goals are. If you don't have a lesson yet, that can kind of come to you as you're working through our template, so I don't want to grab you by the throat about that, but it's something to bear in mind. Fifth, every main character, is going to need some semblance of personality. Personality is this big word, and personality can be so many different things, so I hate to throw that in your lap because it's kind of a lot. But I would say don't worry about personality in this moment, because what you're gonna notice, again, everything we do is in a certain order for a reason. When you have your character's values and their goals and different things like that, the personality actually jumps out at you because you're looking at what you do know about your character and it starts to tell you things about the personality, so you don't have to work as hard. And then lastly, before we get to working through our character template, we need all of our main characters to have relationships with each other. Now, relationships can be complicated. You don't necessarily need to know all of the details out the gate, but just know things like, are these people enemies? Did these people meet when they were young? Are these people working together now out of nowhere to achieve a specific shared goal? Just, little things. Or maybe if you know how their relationship develops, maybe there's a love interest situation, just kind of have rough ideas of what your character relationships are going to look like in mind, because it will help inform things like goals and all of that. See, all of these things are tied together. It's a big thing. With all of that in mind, it is finally time to move on to the character template. So I'm going to be showing, I don't know if I'll do screenshots or how I'll do it, but I'm going to pop up the character template here so that we can kind of take a look at it together. You'll notice I've got some blank images. Now this character sheet I'm going to share with you. I'm not sure how I'll do it yet, but there will be a link in the description and in a pinned comment. I'm likely going to do this through a shared Google Drive, I think, but I'm going to put this somewhere in the description, somewhere in the comments, as a PDF that you can download and print out to work through on your own. Anyways, you'll notice there are little spots that you can put photos of your characters if you want, or you can white it out and draw something on, or you can put this whole template into a photo editor and edit some photos in. You can do whatever you want with that, or you can just leave it blank and know who your characters are. I don't know, but I wanted to try and give you that option. Now, when you work through this template, I'm going to recommend that you either start with the initial info, kind of the infographics, demographics section, not infographics, that's something else. But you'll either start with the general demographics or you'll go into the about continued. So going through the general demographics section, I'm going to have a spot for age, gender, sexuality, nationality, occupation. If your character is a student, you can just put student. If they're unemployed, you can put unemployed or N/A. This is your template to customize as you see fit. Location, because I think that the location that a story takes place genuinely impacts a lot, so I do want you to bear location in mind. And then kind of their role, just protagonist, antagonist, super simple, bare bones. And then 2 little other slots in case there are certain things that I didn't account for that you want to put in there. Now this template is super bare bones. I know a lot of character templates have 100 and something questions, and I think that if you just love working on characters, that can be totally awesome to do. But what I'm trying to give you today is what you absolutely need. So I gave you what you absolutely need to create a character that will serve your plot, plus a couple extra fun things. So I'm trying to keep it nice and simple, and I just want you to do what you absolutely have to do today, and you can work on some extra character stuff later if you want. Moving on to the about continued, this is kind of the meat and cheese of your character profile. This is where we're really going to figure out how they're going to serve your plot. So we have a main goal section. We have values. I've put up to 3 bullet points there. And attitudes, I do want to take a second to kind of explain attitudes. So long story short, attitudes is your personality, but I think personality is a really intimidating word and you don't even know what to think of when I say personality sometimes. At least that's how I feel. So to make it easier, I went with attitudes. This is explained in the template, but I like attitudes over personality because attitudes often focuses on what's going to fluctuate and change over time, and what's most important to know about a character and how it will serve your story is going to be those attitudes, which are the components of personality that are going to see some change. Now, they can also be stagnant too, so that's another thing I like about attitudes. Maybe your character's attitudes are stubborn, unkind, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with stuff and words are not happening right now. Jaded, maybe distrusting, and maybe these attitudes stay the same throughout the story, and maybe they change. So I like using attitudes because all these things, you'll notice, do account for personality, and when you write down these attitudes, you'll have an idea of what your character's personality is going to be, but also you have a perfect list of things that you can change throughout the story or keep the same. So I just like attitudes. If you don't like it, that's fine. You can cross it out and replace it with personality. Do whatever you want. This is your template once it's in your hands. And then after attitudes, we have strengths and weaknesses. You can also think of this as talents and not so talents, however you want to visualize this in your head, but this is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to write down where your character is skilled versus where they're unskilled, and you're going to use those bullets to help you inform what's going to happen in your plot. After that's all filled out, I'm going to ask that you move on to the story progression section. So we have 3 pieces to this. We have who I am, who I become, and what drives my change. And these 3 sections account for who your character is in episode 1, who your character is in the finale, and a list of some of the events or conflicts or things that you think might happen that are going to be the catalyst or the main driver for your character's changes between episodes 1 and your finale. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, comment, I will clarify for you. This is elaborated upon in the template too, but essentially what you need to know is who I am is who your character is at the start of your story, and who I become is who your character is at the end. And what drives my change is what happens at your story's midpoint that's going to lead your character to develop into who they are at the end. This also serves to inform the character's lesson learned, so to speak. So if you don't know what your character's lesson learned is going to be yet, when you write down how your character changes, you're probably going to find some sort of lesson in that. You know, if your character goes from being closed-minded to open-minded, there's probably a lesson in there somewhere. You know, why did we go from closed-minded to open-minded? What did we learn? What was the lesson we learned that changed our minds? See what I'm saying? Picking up what I'm putting down? And then beside the main character plotting part of your template, I've also included a miscellaneous section. This is just so you can jot down anything you have, ideas, or maybe if there's just a separate category that you want to be part of the template that I didn't include, that's a really good spot to put down your extras. Now at the bottom of our template, I've included a handy dandy, very rudimentary, minimal character relationship map. In the middle of your map is going to be the character that you are working on in the template. So you'll have different character maps for each character. They're included in the template, so you can print out multiple of these templates. But you'll notice your character you're working on will be in the middle, and then there are 6 other characters that you can include. 6 to me is kind of a big number for what's supposed to be a smaller character map and a character profile. You can, of course, create your own character map in a separate document on a separate sheet of paper, wherever, with all of your characters, and it can be super complicated, but this is intentionally a simple character map, and this is kind of just to have a bare bones idea of what those relationships are going to be. And there are little blanks in between your character and then the character that they are in said relationship with, to kind of write down what that relationship is. Now you might notice there's not another arrow going from the little characters back to your big character in the middle, and that's because if you use the template for every main character, that's already going to be accounted for, because you'll see how that character relates back to your character if you look at their template. You get what I'm saying? Like if you make one of these for all of your main characters, that information will be accounted for. So if you want to create a huge character relationship map that has the back and forth from each character and have it all laid out on one sheet of paper, cool, bravo, but I just wanted to make sure you had something simple to work with right now, so that's why I created a simple character map that you can just repeat for each character. You feel me? And then beside the character relationship map, I also have a separate notes section for you about the relationships, so you can elaborate on those relationships if you want, because really there's only enough space to write mom, dad, sister, cousin, love interest, enemy, bully, you know, simple stuff like that. And if you already know the complexities behind these relationships, I wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of space to kind of elaborate there. And I did include 6 bullets on purpose so that you have a chance to write about relationship specifics with all 6 characters, if you even use all 6, because you might not. You might just want to do relationship mapping for the main characters, and for the main characters you might only have 3. I just included extra spots just in case, because the last thing I want to do is limit you with my template. Now that's really all I have for you in this episode. If you go through and you fill out this template for every character, you're going to have a pretty darn tootin' good cohesive cast that you're going to be ready to start your plot with. We're going to talk about plotting in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. I know this was a really big, long-winded episode, but that's how they're all going to be. That's the nature of this series. I want to be detailed and thorough. If you're not into that, that's fine. There are actually so many other LPS tubers who have created series about how to make a series. I'm just trying to do something different here and really give you extra resources and extra love and extra hand-holding, all of that good stuff. So anyways, I will ship you off to the outro. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to support the channel. I'm trying to grow. I've been trying to grow for a whole decade here. Let's keep the momentum going. If you liked the video, leave a like, and as mentioned earlier, comment any questions that you have or just any feedback. Maybe you hated my tips and you thought this was horrible, and you know what? I'm open to criticism, so if this was a waste of your time, let me know. But anyways, jokes aside, I love you guys. Please take care of yourselves, and I already can't wait to hang out with you again, so I will see you so soon. Bye-bye.